Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Here in Britain we love a convertible. In fact, here in the UK we buy more drop tops than in all the other European countries combined. That's always a fact that I've just found totally mind-blowing. It's even more difficult to get your head around that fact when you remember that we're not exactly blessed with good weather all year round. Nobody ever confuses Coventry for Kissimmee, do they? Or Bradford for Boca Raton. And yet we're still obsessed with ragtops. The car that I'm driving today I think is the perfect car for the UK. It's this 2017 Mazda MX5 RF. I know you'll be quite familiar by now with the MX5. It's been around for as long as I have. It's a really simple but effective recipe. 2 seats, you've got a roof that folds back at the drop of a hat. There's a peppy engine up front which sends power to the rear wheels, and you get a terrific manual gearbox. You always have. 28 years after the first model debuted, they gave us this one, which on the face of it looks like any other old MX5, except this one's called the RF, and it has a folded metal roof. Which means in theory you get the best of both worlds. When it's raining for 300 days of the year, you get a hard top. And then when the sun's got its hat on, you can drop it at the touch of a button. I've been interested to get my hands on one of these for a while, so when this arrived at the garage last week, I couldn't wait to take it out. Firstly, let's talk about the styling. I think it's great. From the front it looks clean and uncluttered. And I know this isn't a very PC thing to say, but it does look more masculine than the previous models. They were definitely more feminine. I think this looks good. I particularly like the headlights. And from the side it looks good. Its Targa shape I think looks interesting. I like the rear end too. It isn't too pretty or fussy. It looks crisp and contemporary. I also like the rear lights. I think overall it's a successful design. It's definitely more grown up, more mature. It feels like a car you could use every day, rather than keeping it sheltered in your garage until the sky's blue. Crucially, this follows the exact same recipe which has made the MX-5 a hit for decades. Up front you've got a choice of 2 engines, both are petrol 4-cylinders. You could go for a 1.5 with 132 horsepower, or a 2 litre with either 160 or 184 horses. The model I'm in today is the 160 horsepower version, and honestly it feels plenty quick enough. Personally I wouldn't go for the 1.5 unless you were offered a terrific deal on it. After all, this is supposed to be a fun car, so you want more horsepower than 132, I'd say. You want your roadster to feel quick, and this certainly doesn't disappoint. It picks up speed lovely. You could buy it with a 6-speed manual gearbox, or on this RF model alone, you could buy it with an automatic, but I wouldn't. MX-5 manual gearboxes are so brilliant and fun to use. You can't go for an automatic. I did a video recently about the best automatic cars to buy for £5 or under, and I said that most of the time manuals are a chore. This is the one exception when they aren't. It's great fun to drive this, as they always are. And this 2 litre genuinely feels quick. Which is no surprise really. 160 odd horsepower in something which weighs just over 1,000 kilos. Its power to weight ratio is better than most. It just handles beautifully. It really flatters the driver. Even if you're having a bad day, you get behind the wheel of an MX-5 and you've instantly got a smile on your face. What's good as well is that it never feels like a handful. You never feel like you can't control it. It's kind of just enough power to have fun with. There are lots of different trim levels available, but you'll be pleased to hear that all of them come well equipped. You get heated seats, cruise control, Bluetooth, USB, all as standard. It isn't all good news though, I'm afraid. There are a couple of downsides to the MX-5. Because the whole car is about as big as a basketball player's shoe, you aren't exactly spoiled with interior space. There's no glove box, no door pockets. This interior space here is absolutely woeful. The cup holder situation is pathetic. The boot only offers 127 litres of space, which, to be fair, is probably enough for a weekend away for 2 people, providing you don't mind wearing the same thing all weekend. I suppose all that stuff doesn't matter though, does it? I mean, if you're in the market for a small 2-seat roadster, it won't come as any surprise that it won't be the last word in practicality. On the bright side, this RF model does get a higher roofline than the standard MX-5, so you get more headroom. On the other side of the coin though, visibility isn't great. I tried to reverse this around a corner earlier, and I couldn't see anything because of that, I guess you'd call it a B-pillar. That B-pillar there just blocks out your line of vision completely. I found the legroom to be fine for me at 5'11", but you might struggle if you're Dutch. Another slight issue is getting into it in the first place. It's so small and low to the ground that you find yourself just hovering over it and then letting gravity do the rest. It's only 1.2 metres high, this. It's tiny. You won't remember any of these negatives though, because I guarantee the whole time you will be grinning like a Cheshire cat. It is such a blast to drive. The steering is perfect, it's almost telepathic. The tiniest of inputs to the wheel have the most dramatic effects. And the great thing about the MX-5 is you don't have to be going particularly fast to have a good time. Because of its diminutive size, I mean, it's only 3.9 meters long. You sit right near the rear wheels, so it's so easy to throw this thing around. It's also ridiculously easy to park and drive around town. This sounds like a bit of an old woman comment, but you can see over the bonnet. You always get that word, don't you? Well, I want a car that I can see over the bonnet of. And I think, well, that doesn't really exist, but with the MX-5 you can. I personally love the Audi TT, but this MX-5 makes the TT look fat and bloated. Moving back inside, I really like the interior layout. Everything's been designed around the driver, so everything is within reach. And overall, the materials used feel quite high quality. There are a couple of things which don't. For example, this dial here to control the infotainment feels a bit cheap. But the rest of it feels very good. Because it's only 1.7 meters wide, you can almost reach the passenger window switch. Every car on the road these days is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but not the MX-5, and I like that. It feels really old school. You even get an old-fashioned handbrake. I know they always get stick for being a bit of a hairdresser's car, but they're not. They're a proper driver's car. I like the fact that, for example, the steering wheel's oversized, makes it feel like you're in an old classic. Let's not forget the MX-5 is all about the wind in your hair, fresh air experience. But I'm happy to report that when the roof's closed, it's much quieter than the standard MX-5 with the fabric top. You might have noticed by now that the camera's jittering all over the place, so you'll think this ride's quite firm. It is a little bit. I mean, it's a low-slung sports car, so it is always going to be on the firm side, but it's not unbearable. Thankfully, the seats are very comfortable. They provide adequate support, but they're also nice and padded and plush. Oh, old XK. That's cool. The other good thing about the MX-5 is because they weigh about as much as a feather tied to a helium balloon, they're really good on fuel. The 1.5 will average 45 miles per gallon, and even this bigger 2 litre will do 40. It's incredible. It has a 45 litre tank, so it should do about 350, 400 miles to a tank, so quite impressive really. And the road tax here in the UK is only £220 a year. The MX-5 is one of the cheapest ways of having fun behind the wheel. Because it's a petrol Japanese car, it should be about as reliable as a Swiss watch, so you shouldn't have any reliability concerns. And also I've found Mazda main dealers to be almost as good as Lexus. They've definitely been to the Lexus school of customer service. Overall, and this is just like every previous MX-5. Good looking, well built, cheap to run, but most of all, great fun to drive. And with this one you've got the added bonus of a solid roof, so nobody's going to put a knife through it. Overall, there's not an awful lot to dislike about this car. Although you might have to invest in some cargo pants with lots of pockets, because as I say, the interior storage is, well, non-existent. Used prices here in the UK start at around £14,000, but that's going to get you a low-spec, high-mileage example. You'll have to spend around £16,000 to get yourself a decent one, which I think is great value when you compare this to a SLK, Z4, TT, and this will be more reliable and cheaper to run. There are no two ways about it. The other good thing is the fact that the RF model is a little bit rarer. For example, when I looked today, there were only 150 for sale on Auto Trader, which means you're part of a slightly more exclusive club. Well, I think that's about it. Thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know below and I'll do my best to get back to you. If you're interested in getting into used car business, then check out my online course. I've created an online platform with nearly 100 videos which explain every single aspect of the used motor trade. Branding, funding, sourcing cars, preparing cars for sale, it's all there, so do check it out. And it's also free still for the first 30 days, and only £27 a month thereafter, and you can cancel at any time. So yeah, cheers guys, I'll see you next time.